3, 2, 1. What's happening, guys? This is Logan Robinson from Here the Spear, presented to you by NoleGameday.com. We're here live on a wonderful, fantastic Thursday evening. Holy smoke, it's Thursday. I'm so used to saying Wednesdays nowadays. Now it's Thursdays. We're all over the place. The Celtics played last night. That's the reason why. So I blame that intro on Dustin there. And they won, right?
They won the series 4-1.
There we go. Perfect. All right, so we'll allow it for that to be the case. So at least we're here on Thursday. We've got a lot to talk about this evening. We're going to recap the full-on NFL draft for the Florida State Seminoles, along with some undrafted free agents. We'll be giving you guys some updates on that and get our takes. We're going to also talk about a few quick hitters regarding the transfer portal, as right now we're still in some waiting mode, and there's not much time left before we try to get some names on who might be leaving the team or entering the transfer portal from Florida State's side. So kind of monitoring that at the moment, as we have not seen anybody enter in, and Florida State is above their scholarship limits. So some interesting stuff there we'll probably discuss later on in the show. And then we'll finish up with some basketball news. VZ's got a handful of things that we'll be going over this evening. But with me this evening is Austin VZ, our lead basketball writer. At the top and down below is Dustin Lewis, our editor-in-chief at NG. Gentlemen, how we doing?
Doing amazing. It's great to actually see you on the podcast this week, Logan. And
yeah,
what an NFL draft weekend for Florida State. 10+ players selected for only the 4th time in program history. And yeah, it was pretty cool to see some of those guys' moments throughout the weekend.
Yeah, I don't have to run the podcast this week. I'm excited to go back to my roots a little bit.
Yeah, I know. How was that? Did you enjoy it? VZ, you're doing a good job, though.
It wasn't bad. It took a little getting used to for the first 30 minutes or so. Once I got used to it, it was fine.
I love how Dustin's in the background just over here. We just know not to give you the reins, Dustin. We just know that. Just okay.
It would have been better, but
right.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll do it one day.
Right.
Sounds good to me. I'll take another break.
Let's not pull up the text or whatever Dustin sent me saying I don't want to run it.
I don't think I said that part. I said I don't want to get on, period.
No, there was something you said a few weeks ago where you said I really don't want to run the stream.
Don't worry. We're going to put Dustin back on the video game streams like it was back in COVID, and he'll be doing this whenever the new NCAA launches. So he's got only a few more months away from doing that. So he'll be back on there, and the content will be thriving. But yeah, that day, the whole weekend was extremely, extremely busy. Nonetheless, we hold multiple sites, and we'll hopefully be able to share some more news on that. But specifically, Florida State and the Bucks. The Bucks already having a big draft themselves, but also Florida State having 10 guys selected in this 2024 NFL draft. Do I think we were prepared for it in a lot of ways? Yeah, we were probably prepped for it, but there's a lot that goes into this and how much content you're putting out. You're trying to stay up to date on everything, where they're going. You're trying to get graphics out. You're getting articles out. You're getting reactions from fans, the reaction from the player, coaches, everything imaginable. So it was a lot, and it was awesome. It was awesome. It's everything that we were looking forward to, I think, here on the show when we kept on talking about these guys, where they were taking visits, top 30 visits, how they did in the combine, how they did in pro day. But now for this to all come to fruition, we now know where these guys are at, a new home. It just feels awesome to have a whole new batch of Florida State Seminoles that are in the NFL that are going to, some of them, make immediate impacts in these organizations. And it feels great. It feels back in that kind of 2013 to 2015 range where you had a whole new load every year of some FSU guys in the league to cover. And it was awesome to see those 10 guys get drafted into a handful of undrafted free agents that have a really good opportunity of, making that roster and competing to take some jobs in some depth charts.
Yeah, and it's about time, right? I mean, the last couple of years, it's felt like on NFL Sundays or Monday nights or Thursday nights, it's a little dry at times as far as former Seminoles. And now to have 10 more added in, 3 undrafted free agents kind of beefs that up a little bit. So it should make things a little bit more exciting during the fall.
And a lot of these guys landed in pretty good spots. There's a couple of destinations I don't love for the player, but I know we'll talk about that as we roll through it. But for the most part, I thought these guys landed in perfect situations for their skill sets. And, in some cases, personalities, like Jared Verse going to LA. I mean, that's just a match made in heaven if I've ever seen it. But a lot of these guys landed in pretty good spots.
Yeah, I was. I wish I could have seen that, reaction from you guys live, but Jared Verse going over there with that personality, I was fingers crossed, hoping he'd be able to make it down here in Tampa, which the Bucks definitely were looking for a pass rusher. But just to bring that kind of personality over there to whatever organization is got to be really fun. And you can tell that the Rams, Sean McVay, too, listening to the video afterward of where Jared Verse was showing up to the headquarters of where the Rams were holding their whole weekend of the NFL draft process there. They had a whole Airbnb'd out kind of mansion that they were using, and Jared Verse shows up just in time whenever Sean McVay and the ownership of the Rams are on the phone with Braden Fisk, picking him and selecting him, and then they hand over the phone to Jared Verse. And just emotions erupt between both of them, and I think it just hits them both at the same time that they're heading to the league together. And also too, I feel like they have some comfort with that, knowing that they have another Nole on this in the same trenches as them, heading to play in the league with one another. An awesome moment. I highly suggest everybody go check out that video. Great content from the Rams.
Yeah, that was really dope. You see a lot of those draft call videos throughout the weekend and after the process, but I don't know that I've ever seen one with that much emotion and between two guys like that. I mean, it was crazy. That was a heck of a video. So yeah, definitely check that out. And man, really excited to see Verse and Fisk paired up together in LA. I mean, you really got a taste of what they could do as a duo in that ACC championship game against Louisville, where they were both absolutely dominant. And now to pair them up at the professional level, I think they're going to be a lot of fun to watch over the next couple of years in LA. And as far as Verse, I mean, he's going to make a ton of money on the field, but off the field with that personality in a market like Los Angeles, he's going to be raking it in.
Yeah, this was super cool to see. I mean, I'm sure everybody said it to this point, but this moment was so cool. I am curious to see how they work out on this defense because the last few years, LA's kind of run an odd front, but when you have Aaron Donald, you can kind of just do whatever. I'm curious to see if they switch some things around, make it a little bit more comfortable for Verse and Fisk. But it's gonna be so cool to see them playing together again. It brought me right back to ACC kickoff last summer, where Jared Verse was saying, "Yeah, Fisk came in and matched my competitiveness right away." And to see them continue to play on together in the league is going to be a lot of fun to watch.
That's the first thing I thought of whenever when Fisk got drafted by the Rams, was what VZ was just talking about. Verse acknowledging and also sharing with all of us that Fisk has that same kind of energy that he brings, and that kind of competitive energy as well. And we saw it early on whenever Fisk was racing Mike Norvell. That team got along with Fisk very well right off the bat, and you think of that too whenever Jared Verse arrived. Maybe Jared was a little bit more. It took a little bit longer for some of these guys to adjust to him. I think we've had some guests on here, some former Noles, tell us that as well. And like Dimitri Emmanuel, who we had on, it took a little while for those offensive linemen maybe to garner a friendship with Verse, but still nonetheless, those guys were built as leaders just really quickly during their time at Florida State. And just to have the fact of them being together with the Rams and a defense that, we're just going to figure out where they were. The funny thing though, during the combine, we talked so much about Aaron Donald, and also too, a lot of broadcasters talking about Aaron Donald and Braden Fisk. Like, how are they going to replace Aaron Donald? Nobody's going to be able to replace Aaron Donald, but there's a guy that they kept on talking about throughout this combine, and it was this guy right here with Braden Fisk. And they want to have that defensive line bring that kind of impact like they had with Aaron Donald, and they think very highly of Braden Fisk. And it's just crazy to see what Braden was able to do. Let's just say it was like in a 5-month time span, just because it wasn't being talked about a whole ton in the early parts of the FSU season. He did a really good job near the latter half in really important games, showing up and fully getting healthy too, which is big. But then making those big plays in the ACC championship. He did against Florida as well. And he skyrockets and leans on that momentum into the NFL Combine, which he was one of the most talked about players during it. And just what a crazy amount of things that have happened for him on the upswing for Braden Fisk. Good for him. And also to shout out former Hear the Spear alum, baby.
Yeah, like I said, there's no replacing Aaron Donald. So they attack it with two freaks of nature. to replace one with Jared Verse and Braden Fisk that are both quick, both super strong. Maybe Fisk not as much compared to the position, but he's freaky fast, and Donald was that at times. So I like that they're going at it from two different directions, trying to replace one of the 5 greatest defensive players of all time in the NFL, and it's only going to help that you have 2 guys that already have that chemistry.
And his rise was insane. I mean, you see guys shoot up the draft board every year, but to go from probably a 4th or 5th round pick and then you end up going to the top 40, I mean, man, it really says that he absolutely crushed that pre-draft process. And you think back to what he was able to do at the Senior Bowl and the NFL Combine, and then still coming out there for Florida State's Pro Day, the interview process. I mean, he really hit every nail on the head that he had to, took full advantage of that opportunity. And to see him be the 3rd FSU player off the board, I don't think a year ago, if we would have made a prediction, who's going to go in what order on draft night, I don't think we would have had Braden Fisk top 3.
No, we wouldn't. Trey Benson I would have had ahead of him. Maybe Johnny, definitely at this time last year when we were projecting him to have a big season ahead. Good for Braden. And, he's killing it right now. He said he told me that he wasn't a big social media guy and whatnot, but I see that he's starting to push out a lot of good content and stuff. So he's getting his branding done, and good for him. And he's going to have even more of bigger opportunities on the West Coast over there in LA to do so. But let's just kind of start off from the top. You guys talked about it a ton live, so I suggest everybody go back and watch that episode and listen to that whenever VZ and Dustin gave their live reaction to Jared Verse being picked by the Rams with the 19th pick in the first round. We got to talk about Keon Coleman here, gentlemen. Pick number 33, the first off the board on the second day. Round 2 pick by the Buffalo Bills. He will be joining Josh Allen. I mean, if you think about it, where Keon Coleman, he was able to play with Jordan Travis, which in a lot of his recent interviews, he talked about Jordan Travis very highly. And why did he pick Florida State? It's Jordan Travis. I think that was on his most recent episode with RG3. But now he gets to go and play with Josh Allen. If, everybody knows a guy that has a cannon of an arm, it seems like it just fits that offense well. And we talked about the Bills with Keon Coleman on here quite a bit. Just seemed like it would be a natural fit. And sure enough, they go ahead and make the pick there for Keon and to be the first off the board in round 2 of the NFL draft this year.
I'll be honest, the way that the Bills have talked about using him, I'm not a big fan of. They've been saying that he's going to be purely X receiver. I just don't know that he's going to be that at the NFL level. I kind of think he's going to be best as a big slot, because we were talking about him comparing to Marcus Colston with the Saints. And I'm like, if Keon Coleman's going to last the NFL, I think it's going to be that kind of career. We'll see how he does as a purely outside receiver. And he really is wide receiver 1 right away in that room. It's not a great room. It's Curtis Samuel. It's Khalil Shakur, I think's his name. It's not a great depth chart. And, he's already won over the media with some incredible press conferences and draft videos. But we got to see how Buffalo uses him. I think it has the potential to work, but they got to use him correctly.
Yeah, I mean, he instantly jumps in there. Stephon Diggs gone to the Texans, Gabe Davis now at the Jags. There's room for Keon Coleman to come in and make an instant impact. And it sounds like, just based off the press conferences and everything, and him talking about his relationship with Josh Allen wanted Keon Coleman in Buffalo, and now they've got this together. And like Austin said, if they can figure out where to play him correctly in that offense to maximize his strengths, he could be really fun to watch early in his career as he makes a nice little wide receiver quarterback duo there with Josh Allen.
It's a funny video the Bills put out. Yeah, he's been killing it. He's probably been one of the most talked about players getting drafted this whole, throughout the weekend and this week, and just because of what he was doing with the media and, just saying where he got his jacket from and everybody being able to relate to him, saying it was at Macy's and it was on the I think it was on the discount area as well. And to him going over and seeing if he can go snack on some of the media members' snacks that the SID set up for media relations and everything. And over here just snacking on some cookies and also sharing one with one of the media members as well. And Dustin, did you, I mean, We had some media times with Keon, and he would give us some funny stuff, and he'd give us this. But I like that now he's able to sort of be more of himself a little bit more. Like he gave me some great quotes after they beat Florida, or I think it was after actually the Clemson game. Whenever he was hyping up J Trav and just saying just you toss it to me no matter if two people are on me, one person just throw it my way. He's got a lot of confidence in him, but he's also hilarious and is just going to be awesome to watch while in the league as well.
Yeah, he's like he's very relatable, very confident guy, and he's accidentally funny. I mean, he's a character for sure. And I wish we would have had longer than one 5-month period to cover him in Tallahassee, because every time Keon got to talk to the media, you never knew what kind of quotes you were going to get, and he's just that funny type of guy. And that's another reason I think he's going to do well in the NFL, because he's got a very, very good demeanor and he carries himself the right way.
Did you guys watch the entire video that they did after he got drafted? It was like a 13 or 14-minute video.
No,
It was pretty hysterical. The entire 14 minutes was just comedy, from him saying, yeah, I was at the hotel and wanted to go swim, and instead of a pool downstairs, they had a skating rink. I'm like, what the hell am I going to do with the skating rink? Then going through the cryo chambers and then putting on the Undertaker music and coming out the fog.
Yeah.
Then missing like 6 putts and saying, I'm Tiger, wish he could. It was just comedy the entire time. And the Buffalo media already loves him, but he's going to be really a fan favorite across the league here pretty soon, that the more these press conferences continue to spread.
Yeah, and if he mixes that in with being Josh Allen's number one and produces there at Bills Mafia, is going to do everything in their power to protect that guy and just hoist him up there, just like how they do with Josh Allen, just like how they did with Diggs as well. But yeah, I saw that one. I also saw him too, running with all his chains on and everything on the field, going and scoring the touchdown.
Not just one, 3 in 30 seconds, which he says is a record.
Yeah, he set a record there. Guinness World Record, NFL record for scoring 3 touchdowns in 30 seconds. So, yeah, Keon's gonna be some great content, and I'm, as a social media guy, I'm all about it. Keep delivering for me, Keon. And then on to number 3, Braden Fisk, as we were just talking about earlier, round 2 of the Rams, 39th pick overall. We're already kind of discussing him earlier, but any last thoughts on Fisk here, going over to the Rams, going to be teaming up with Jared Verse off the edge there. Really cool combo of guys. I just think of Sean McVay, and that guy does know talent. I mean, look also at, Puka Nacua, a guy that got drafted later in the rounds. But still, I think the Rams organization does a really good job of evaluating talent and early, and they see a lot in Braden Fisk itself. But combining that with Jared Verse, they just saw some games and saw how they were able to dominate when needed, when that defense needed to step up, and to a different kind of extent that Florida State hasn't had to rely on a defense as much, and definitely under Mike Norvell's tenure. But specifically these last couple of games of the 2023 season, I think they saw that from Fisk and Verse, and it was something that they are highly intrigued on adding into this defense and making an impact early on.
They used a pretty significant amount of assets to trade up there and acquire Fisk. So I think that also shows just how highly thought of he was in that within that organization pre-draft. So to land Verse in that first round and then still have him hanging around where you can go and pair him up, and they've seen some of that film with them side by side. If they can use those guys the same sort of way, I mean, that combo is just going to continue to be fun to watch moving forward.
Yeah, they gave up a ton, and a lot of the reactions we saw after the draft were, hey, we really love the player in Braden Fisk, but they gave up this year's second and a 5th and a next year's second to go up like 15 spots or so to go up and select Fisk. So he better work out, because that is a lot of draft capital. I'm just glad I got his range right in my preview articles. I think I said I'm going between 37 and 44. Goes to 39, right in my wheelhouse. I'm good.
You'll take it. You'll take it 100%. So yeah, shout out to Fisk, Verse too. Both guys being here the Spear alums. So best of luck to them. Hopefully down the road we'll be able to grab them on here. But moving on here to round 2, which we were talking about in the production meeting, you and I, VZ, were kind of a little surprised by this, how early this went on. This happened for Renardo Green. But Renardo Green goes in round 2 to the San Francisco 49ers, the 64th pick. And he's heading over to the West Coast as well to join Verse and Fisk. And we'll talk about another Nole, or actually a couple other Noles that are going to be in the West Coast as well. But How about Renardo Green here, man? And I've stayed really strong on Renardo Green. He didn't do a whole lot of posting during this kind of off season and getting through the combine and pro day and sharing all of the visits and such. But, the 49ers like what they saw from Renardo Green these last couple of years, and specifically this last season. And just hearing from some of the staff there, they think that he can be, a CB1 for them moving forward in the Bay.
Yeah, it was kind of a quiet pre-draft process. Like me and Austin were talking about it last week. You weren't really hearing much chatter on him visiting teams or workouts or things of that nature. So his draft stock felt kind of like a toss-up going into the weekend. And certainly, I felt like it started in that late second round range and probably ended somewhere around the early fourth rounds. I mean, to see him go that quickly off the board to the San Francisco 49ers, I think it's a really good fit. He's a physical defensive back, and he fits right in with that mantra that the 49ers bring to the field. And yeah, I mean, that's going to be a fun one to watch. It sounded like Kyle Shanahan was really excited to get him on board.
Yeah, he was someone I couldn't pin down at all. Like, couldn't find the teams that were interested. Like I said, no pre-draft visits that were made available. I'm sure he took some, but they just weren't made available. I think it's a perfect landing spot. They kind of needed a third corner, especially with someone that can play outside, because they have Diamador Lenore, they have Travarius Ward, and they like to move Lenore inside when they have three corners out there. Bringing in a guy like Renardo, who really can lock down the side of the field. We saw him do it against Malik Neighbors against LSU. I think it's a perfect fit. He's got to get a little less grabby with his hands, but this really is, to me, probably my favorite landing spot of all the guys that were drafted. I think this is absolutely the best situation for any of these guys. Can learn from some talented defensive backs and really talented defense overall that has Fred Warner, Nick Bosa. I mean, that's a really talented defense, and he should thrive in it right away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and then
a team that was in the Super Bowl last year as well.
Yeah.
Yep. And I was going to say another thing worth pointing out, Renardo, the only one of the 10 guys who are drafted this weekend that signed with Florida State out of high school.
Yeah. Good note there as well. Going on back to the offense, though. Back to the offense after Keon Coleman. We go over to Trey Benson, round 3, to the Cardinals, Arizona Cardinals there. He's going to be joining James Conner, most recently drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. stud there at wide receiver that the Cardinals picked first in the first round on the Thursday night. And then, Kyler Murray, they're staying put and sticking with Kyler Murray moving forward. But I kind of match that into kind of Jordan Travis, how he was and how he is elusive as a quarterback. And so Trey Benson gets matched again with one of those type of quarterbacks. And he gets drafted in the third round, which I think we all kind of expected for him to be in this notch that he got picked up on. But thoughts on him heading over to Arizona, man? And they've been doing a lot of work on trying to rebound and get this team back into playoff contention after the last couple of years of some struggle.
It's an interesting fit for sure. I think I was looking most at the Dallas Cowboys and Cleveland Browns ahead of the draft, but I mean the Cardinals are really fleshing out that offense, like you said, taking Marvin Harrison Jr. in the first round, pairing him with Kyler Murray, and now Trey Benson entering that backfield alongside James Conner. Got to feel like he's going to be getting a ton of carries out of the gate, if not winning over that starting role in training camp. Conner, a pretty solid veteran, but the Cardinals, they're bringing in a real threat in Trey Benson, and him going over to that division, the NFC West. We got to see it on social media after the draft, but it didn't take him very long to realize, hey, I'm going to have to play Jared Verse and Braden Fisk twice a year, and it's not going to be in practice where they just touch me and the play is over. Like, these guys are going to be coming and hitting me for sure. And Verse was quick to respond back on social media and say they're not going to be taking it easy on him. So that's the main thing I think I'm watching here as he makes this transition to Arizona. And Renardo Green is in that division. We'll get to Tatum, but there's been a fair amount of Seminoles that have now landed in that NFC West, and they're going to be seeing each other pretty often between the lines.
I'm excited.
This is an interesting fit. They needed a home run hitter in that backfield because James Conner, as Logan knows, he's like your solid 3 to 4, 5 yards, but he's never really going to break those home runs. Benson can break those home runs. They'll use Connor to soften up the defense, put in Benson and light the fire. But don't love the offensive line in front of him. They had, I think, 12 picks in this NFL draft and didn't really do a lot to address the offensive line. But an offense that has him, Kyler Murray, and Marvin Harrison Jr. can only be fun. There's no other way to describe it. Like, it's just going to be fun.
Yeah, should have some explosiveness with that offense. So I'd like for that organization, now that Trey is over there, get back on, find its footing and improve. Because I have nothing to do with them. I'm not a rival to them or nothing. So I hope they get better. And definitely now that Trey's over there, we'll see what happens. But yeah, that he goes into a running back room where he will be splitting carries with James Conner, which we look at what Mike Norvell has done throughout his tenure at Florida State. That's how it goes. That running back of that day, whoever's meshing well is going to get most of those carries, or depending on the game plan. So that's what he's going to be tossed into. And, that could always change and whatnot, just depending on James Conner there and, playing time, but still he's going to be shuffled around. And I think that's a good start for him to begin his NFL career. Don't need to be set on RB1 right away. And then over to Duval, baby. We're going over to the Jacksonville Jaguars with a former Hear the Spirit alum as well. Jarrian Jones gets picked in the round 3, and he gets picked at 96 from the NFL draft. Congratulations to him. But nice pickup here, I feel like, for the Jaguars, which a team that they needed help in the secondary. And they feel like he's going to fit well from what the Jaguars were saying in their press conference. He's going to fit well in that nickel spot where he can kind of move around a little bit too and take some of those slot guys. But thoughts on Jarrian Jones here going over here to the Jaguars, the only player outside of Kalen DeLoach of staying in Florida.
Not a very far drive from Tallahassee to Jacksonville. So not sure where Jarrian was at before the draft, but either way, it shouldn't be a long trip to get over there to his new franchise. But he was the 5th top 100 pick for Florida State, most since 2015. And I mean, one of the highest numbers in program history if you go back, throughout the years of NFL drafts that Florida State has had players selected. And yeah, I mean, I wasn't necessarily expecting him to go this high, but I definitely think he's earned it with the way he performed during the NFL Combine. And you look at the season that he was able to put forward last year. I mean, one of the best cornerbacks in the entire country, and really showed a lot of improvement throughout his career in Tallahassee. So excited for him to be able to stay in the state of Florida and go suit up for the Jags.
It was actually the 6th top 100, not the 5th. I'll be honest, I don't really love this fit for Jarrian. The Jaguars needed help at outside corner more than anything, and I'm scared that they're going to stick him outside more than he needs to, because he's a phenomenal slot corner. Really great in the nickel, but they also signed Darnell Savage this offseason, who plays that role as well. So I'm kind of scared they're going to stick him outside where it may be a longer development curve for him. But if they stick him in the slot day one and keep him there, then he'll have success. We'll just have to see how they use him.
Yeah, I had to see how it goes with Darnell.
And it's also not like the Jaguars are the smartest of franchises. I lived there for 18 years. They don't always make the best decisions.
You are right. It is 6 top 100 picks, which makes that number in program history a little bit higher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, they definitely need to stick him there at nickel. And we saw that where he worked best with his play at that position this last season as well too. So we'll have to see how that works and training camp, see how that goes with Darnell Savage as well. And if you can learn from him too, that'd be nice because of his experience. But he's going to stay over there in Duval. But yeah, round 3 pick for Jarrian Jones. And I feel like Renardo and Jarrian Jones, we gave a lot of praise to throughout the season last year. And we were talking, these guys are really putting some stuff on their name to get drafted early. And I feel like, if I would have said Renardo round 2, like maybe a little bit higher than maybe I thought, but I mean, he's still the product that he put out on the field. I think allows for him to go that early along with, Jarrian Jones in the season that he had and turning things around in his career. But shout out to both of them, both guys having to do a lot in their early parts of their career to turn things around. Renardo Green staying healthy, trying to get up on that depth chart, solidify which position group from safety to corner, and Jarrian Jones, just having a fluctuating kind of early years during his time at Florida State and solidifying that nickel position and doing a great job at that, making some plays, interceptions, everything. So shout out those two guys. Those guys really dug in and put in the work to put themselves in this position. So shout out to those two guys.
Really
Coach
impressive.
Surtan putting some guys out in the league, man. Coach Surtan.
Yeah, that was my question. Do we get to credit Surtan with 2 top 100 picks now?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I don't think there's. I don't want to discredit the progress Jarrian Jones made, but he's not a third-round pick without Surtan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, had a career year.
Yep, 100%, both those guys. So, good stuff there from Jarrian. And here we go on to QB1. Now, depending on what you say, but going to be QB3 going into this Jets organization, but still nonetheless, Jordan Travis, former FSU football quarterback star, gets picked up by the New York Jets in round 5, pick 171. Pick 171 just sounds good for some reason, just something to look back on in a few years. Hopefully it comes to fruition there where we look back and Jordan Travis has been able to sit behind a guy like Aaron Rodgers, another guy with some phenomenal experience with Tyrod Taylor. I mean, he's joining a room with a friggin' future Hall of Fame quarterback, gentlemen. And I feel like for Jordan Travis, he sitting back in this room, getting developed even more, learning from these two, like Taylor and also Rodgers, is such an awesome opportunity. I'm sure he's, drooling at the opportunity that he's about to get thrown into here in a few weeks once some of these mini camps start beginning. But awesome opportunity for Jordan Travis here. He took visit with the New York Jets on site up there. They liked him. We heard, Coach Saleh talking about him also to the organization whenever they had the phone call and they shared that video. This team thinks very highly of Jordan Travis on the field, off the field, but, they're specifically putting J-Trap behind, A-Rod, and also looking at Tyrod Taylor to learn, gain experience from that, because one day his number might be called in that Jets with the New York Jets. So awesome stuff there. And Florida State gets a quarterback drafted for the first time since going back to Jameis Winston.
I'll let Austin go first since he predicted this to happen, basically.
Yeah, the wizard cap was in full effect on this one. I said the Jets would make a trade, come up to the end of the 5th round and select Jordan Travis. That's exactly what happened. Traded up from 185 to 171, took Jordan Travis. It's the perfect landing spot. Dustin and I talked about it last week on the stream, where if we could choose any team for him to go to, it'd be the Jets. Because if he's going to succeed in the NFL, it's going to be as a Tyrod Taylor kind of quarterback, where he can potentially spot start for a season, maybe be a bridge quarterback. He can be that perfect backup that everyone loves, everyone respects. It really is the perfect landing spot. The quarterbacks didn't go exactly the way we thought they would, because Spencer Rattler lasted on the board a long time. There was talk of him going to the 2nd or 3rd round. I want to say he ended up in the 5th or the 6th. Michael Pratt, who was predicted kind of in that 3rd or 4th round, didn't go until the 7th round. So went a little out of order from what people were expecting. And then Jordan Travis just lands exactly where he needs to. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, it was a team that we kind of talked about the last couple of weeks just because it made so much sense with, Jordan rehabbing off that leg injury and then being able to go into the NFL, learn behind a future Hall of Famer, learn behind someone in Tyrod Taylor who has had an extremely good career as a backup quarterback at the NFL level. I mean, I don't think that there's a better landing spot. That's why I was a little surprised earlier whenever we were talking about Renardo and, you said the San Francisco 49ers. You didn't think there was another Nole that went to a team that had a better fit.
This is the one I'd argue.
Yeah. I mean, this one for sure, and Renardo. I mean, those are the two that really stand out to me. But yeah, it's a really good opportunity for Jordan. And then he's also going into a big market there, right around New York City, where, he can market himself and maybe become a face of the league one day.
And he's got his former teammate Jermaine Johnson there, who
Yep.
Was he the one that released a text saying, "Hey, go draft Jordan Travis"?
Yep, it was him.
So he's already got some support in that building. I love it for him.
Yeah, that was super dope. He gets reunited there with Jermaine Johnson, which, on the field, off the field, those two have a really tight and close relationship as well. So going to be nice and comforting for Jordan Travis to get up there in New York. But I just can't wait for the pictures to come out once we get into some of these rookie mini camps, but more specifically, whenever Aaron Rodgers is going to be there with some of these OTAs, and J-Trav's going to be in there, and he's going to be in the background with some of the photos, or they're going to be taking photos together. It's going to be really cool content for us to be posting. So I'm all about it.
Hopefully Rodgers treats J-Trav better than he's treated some of these young quarterbacks in the past. That's all I hope.
I wouldn't.
Yeah. What'd you say, Dustin?
He said I wouldn't count on it.
I wouldn't count on it. I mean, guys, he's kind of a douche. Sorry.
He is. No, he is.
Yeah, no, he's a different kind of personality than some of these other guys in the league. But just to sit there, pick his brain, or just watch film with them, anything, just knowing J-Trav, he's going to eat all of that up, as he should. Aaron Rodgers is a different specimen of a quarterback. So awesome stuff there, and looking forward to covering that heavily when we go through some of these mini camps coming up, later this summer. Up next, one of the top targets for Jordan Travis the last couple of seasons, Johnny Wilson, is going to the Philadelphia Eagles. We talked about that too on the show a couple times, I feel like, but round 6 with pick 185, he's going to be joining Jalen Hurts as his quarterback there, and they've got some absolute monsters at wide receiver with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. That wide receiver unit is already loaded. I think they've already got a stud at wide receiver 3 too. I can't remember his name, but this is a team that was showing a lot of promise last year, fell off there, and they have some question marks, and they have to make a statement with their head coach for him to keep his job next season. But nonetheless, though, Johnny Wilson, round 6. Thoughts on him getting drafted to the Eagles, gentlemen?
Early returns, I think it's a good fit for Johnny, because it sounds like the Eagles really did their research here on the type of prospect that he is. The GM was talking about it in the press conference after they selected him, and said they don't have any plans to try and shift him down to tight end. They're going to keep him out at wide receiver, and they understand that he's a very unique prospect and someone you've got to put in the right positions to be successful. So I think this could be a very good spot for Johnny, obviously landing alongside, like you noted, Logan, some very other talented wide receivers, and that could potentially open up opportunities for him early in his career if he is able to crack that rotation for the Eagles.
So they don't really have like a true third receiver right now. They signed Paris Campbell from the Giants. They've got Devontae Parker, who was retired for last season. Then they drafted Aeneas Smith in the 5th round, who a lot of people were really high on, but he's the exact opposite player from Johnny Wilson. Small, shifty, really wants to work underneath. And then you have Johnny Wilson, who's literally a pterodactyl on the outside. So I'm really curious to see how they end up using him. I'm intrigued of the thought of having A.J. Brown and Johnny Wilson on the outside, just 2 towers, really. And then Devontae Smith doing all the underneath stuff. I think that'd be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, same here too. That's a big unit right there at wide receiver for Jalen Hurts to work with. So, I'm gonna enjoy seeing how that works out for him and the Eagles too. And then now going and sticking up north, Jahim Bell finds a new home as well in round 7. He gets picked at 231 with the New England Patriots. That was the only place that he visited for Jahim, that at least it was publicly shared. But Jahim Bell joins the Patriots, and those guys, the Patriots organization has always found one kind of tricky guy that they can kind of work around with offensively. It seems like they're going to continue that too under the new realm, their new head coach. But still, Bell, what we saw last year and how they tried to utilize him a little bit, was dinged up for almost, it felt like, a majority of the season, it felt like. But this is a gadget type player that you can work around and put in the backfield. You can put him in sweeps, you can put him in the slot, put him almost anywhere in an offense, put him at the running back position like we saw. You can also use him as a quarterback too, like Mike Norvell liked to do. This guy has a lot of smarts. He can be utilized all across the field too offensively. So thoughts on Bell heading up there to New England at round 7?
Well, it's funny because last week we were on here, and so is Emily, and we got to the point of the conversation where we figured out she was a New England Patriots fan, and then we're talking about Jahim Bell later in the show, and Austin, kind of pitched that fit a little bit to New England, and she was talking about how they already had some tight ends on the roster, but Yeah, I mean, I think this could be an interesting fit for Jahim going in there, going to have an opportunity to play with a rookie quarterback in Drake May under a new head coach for the first time in forever as far as the Patriots. And yeah, they're gonna have to be a little bit creative with how they use him because he's not that traditional tight end. He doesn't have that big body like you're expecting from uh, that tight end that you see in the NFL these days. You know, that 6'5", 250-pound type of guy. You know, he's a little bit smaller than that. So, like you kind of hinted at, Logan, you know, they're gonna have to put him in those right spots and utilize him in the right scenarios because he's not going to be a dominant blocker for you, but I mean, he can really affect the game as a runner, you know, as a receiver, yards after catch type of guy. So, you know, it's an intriguing fit, and you know, excited to see his transition to the professional level.
Definitely lasted on the board a little bit longer than we maybe expected. I think his size really hindered him more than we expected. I think we had him going, what, fifth or sixth round?
Hmm.
Ends up going top, middle of the seventh. Not only do they have to get creative just with his skill set, but they've already got two tight ends that are set in stone there with Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki. So they're going to have to be creative in their usage, whether it's out of the backfield as an H-back. I don't see him being an inline tight end, just given who they already have on the roster. But split him out wide in the slot. They'll have to figure something out for him if he's going to last on this roster.
And I think just to add to that, he's going to have to perform on special teams and be valuable in that asset as well. And that was something that he was able to do effectively at Florida State when he was healthy.
Yeah, 100%. And then last off the board for Florida State, Tatum Bethune is going to be joining Renardo Green over there with the 49ers in round 7, the 251st pick of the 2024 NFL draft. Tatum Bethune is going to be going over there. It's an interesting situation that he's going into, and I think it's great for kind of like how Jordan Travis is in learning behind some of these guys that have the experience ahead of him. But Fred Warner, like we were talking about earlier, VZ, one of the best linebackers. I just love watching Fred Warner play.
He's a lot of fun.
Physical, fast. He's just everywhere. He's just an annoying ass linebacker that's everywhere, and that's just exactly what you want in today's age of a linebacker. And then also too, Greenlaw is dealing with an Achilles injury as well right now, so he's kind of questionable going into the season. But still, nonetheless, Tatum Bethune gets a good join in that, which I think is one of the best linebacker rooms in the league itself. He gets to sit back behind some of those guys and learn to pick their brain and also get some good experience on field as we head into, some of these rookie mini camps and on the OTAs and of course training camp. Really, really solid room that Tatum Bethune's heading into. And I'm just interested to see where they're going to put him at linebacker.
Tatum was another one of the really good NFL draft calls of the weekend because the 49ers put it out on their YouTube channel. But, I mean, he was just so thankful, so grateful to even be selected. And, you can get to that later territory of the draft and in that 6th and 7th round. And, some guys are obviously and some rightfully are going to feel slighted about it. And, they're going to take that motivation from where they got selected. But, it was kind of the opposite for Tatum. I mean, he was just so happy to have that moment. I think it just shows, whether it's the 1st round or the 7th round, I mean, this is a lifelong dream come true for a lot of these guys. And I'll be honest, I was a little bit surprised because if you would have told me coming into the weekend that one of Florida State's linebackers was going to get drafted, I would have probably went with Kalen DeLoach. But, Tatum Bethune, hard-hitting linebacker, led Florida State in tackles last season, dealt with some injury problems every now and then, but I mean, he's a thumper in the true sense of the name, will come up and knock you out at the line of scrimmage, even if he's a little bit undersized. And this is another one where I feel like, if he was going to get drafted, going to the 49ers, a really good fit for Tatum Bethune with the way he likes to bring the physicality.
Yeah, like you just said, I was a little bit surprised to see him end up getting drafted over DeLoach, who's much more athletic, and they're about the same size. But he landed in the perfect spot, like you just mentioned. There's very few linebacker rooms that develop the way San Francisco's does. We just mentioned Greenlaw and Warner, but even Azeez Al-Shaair, who played with them for a few years, has had some success with the Titans and just signed a decent-sized contract with the Texans. They do a good job of developing linebackers over there. And if there's anywhere he was going to be drafted to, I'm glad it was San Francisco because they do such a great job over there.
I'm just checking over here and seeing if the 49ers play the Commanders in 2024. All I have is the home opponents, which it doesn't show there. but just making sure because Jaden Daniels,
He's got to watch out.
They've got to be prepared. Jaden Daniels got to be prepared and get that offensive game plan a little bit better there for the Commanders whenever they face. If they do face the 49ers and Tatum Bethune, watch out. Make sure you slide before you get popped by Tatum Bethune. But yeah, shout out to Tatum, man. I'm excited for him. He earned it as well. But yeah, I was right there with you too, D-Lo. I thought that maybe Kalen would go over. I thought both would get drafted, but I thought Kalen might go just a little bit ahead of Tatum Bethune in this draft.
Yeah, but either way, really cool that's another one. Tatum and Renardo land together there in San Francisco, and now you think about the NFC West. You got Verse and Braden Fisk with the Rams. You've got Trey Benson with the Cardinals, and you've got Bethune and Green with San Francisco. So those guys are going to be playing each other a ton next year, and we should be some very exciting matchups because we've seen some of those collisions in practice, and I don't think they're going to take it any easier on each other now that, they're making money to hit each other. A lot of money.
Yeah, a lot. Now there's a ton of stuff. Once we kind of just catch up on everything, we'll have to go, week by week. Our NFL pieces will have a lot more juice to them and meat now on a weekly basis when we put those out.
Thank God.
I know, man. We needed that. We needed this stuff, man. So we're gonna have to do our own previews here and just give it another year. We're gonna have to do just previews on Sundays of who's facing who and what to watch out for. I swear, and I'm all about it. I'm all about it, Dustin. So think about that idea. Keep that idea saved in your head going into 2025. But yeah, it's not done though, guys. Let's talk about some undrafted free agents. So 10 in total get drafted for Florida State. And then a handful of other guys finding homes elsewhere for the time being. Kalen DeLoach, let's start off with Kalen DeLoach, man. This is one of the fan favorites. I could tell he's a fan favorite. He blew up all of our socials whenever we were sharing that he just got, an opportunity as an undrafted free agent to get picked up by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers down here in Tampa with me, former also here the Spear alum. But he gets a really unique opportunity, I think, and a kind of a steal for the Bucs for what they need and what they're trying to reload with at the linebacker position. They lost Devin White, which is not necessarily what he'd be replacing there. But if you look at Levante David, he's getting close to kind of ending up and hanging it up here in Tampa as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. And I think that's where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are looking at him. Coach Todd Bowles, he works an interesting system where he's throwing a lot of blitzes, man. I mean, Todd Bowles is one of the most highly respected defensive coaches in the league, but what he likes to do defensively and send guys after the quarterback and send pressure, definitely in that linebacker unit. This is kind of what fits, Kalen DeLoach. We saw that happen last year too with Adam Fuller. I mean, we go back to one of the biggest plays, if not the biggest play in the season, whenever he rocked Klubnik and took that back for 6. But this gives Kalen DeLoach kind of that same opportunity from a handful of these other guys that have got drafted to sit back in a room, learn. Also needs to put on some weight as well, but that can certainly be done. But this kind of gives him an opportunity to maybe jump in and make a roster spot. He'll have to come in and play special teams, but a nice opportunity for DeLoach down here. And it's going to be awesome to see him and be able to just shoot the shit with him in the locker room and not have to worry about certain things that we can't talk about and stuff. Just it's going to be nice to hang out and just do some NFL stuff with him because we're kind of limited on what we do on the college side. So super stoked to have him down in the Bay, gentlemen.
This is another one I'm really excited about for a multitude of reasons. And first off, we've got a Nole on the Bucs, so that's going to help us out Bucs game day wise and NoleGameday wise. We're going to get plenty of content from that. And then two, the Buccaneers, I mean, they just don't have a ton of experience right now at that linebacker position. Like you said, you got Levante David there. That's going to be a really good mentor for Kalen DeLoach. But then outside of that, KJ Britt started to come along last year. Now Devin White's no longer on the roster. So there's definitely a chance that Kalen DeLoach can come in there. And I mean, if he makes an impact early on, he could potentially make this roster or maybe even earn a practice squad spot. It's always an uphill battle for undrafted free agents. But I think we've seen, especially now that we've been able to take a closer look at the Buccaneers the last couple of years, General Manager Jason Light and that coaching staff really pride themselves on finding quality undrafted free agents. And we even saw, I think it was, I want to say at least 4 that made the final 53-man roster a year ago. And can't remember the dude's name right now, Logan, in the defensive backfield, but the cornerback or safety that played a good amount for Tampa Bay a season ago.
Maybe
So, I mean,
Izian.
Yeah, I'm about to say
yeah,
Izian.
Izian. So that's an area that franchise really prides itself on, and just based off their early talks about Kalen, sounds like they're really excited to get him in there, get him working.
It's a team that needed developmental linebacker, someone that they can bring along over the next couple of years and allow him to contribute on special teams and hopefully can grow in to being a more true rotational player. I think it's a great fit. Gets to stay a little bit close to home, not too far away from Savannah, Georgia. So should be a good fit for him.
Yep. And we know Mr. Deloach will be traveling no matter what to whatever's going on. I'm sure we'll see him at training camp as well. So super stoked for that. Goes into a good room. So that's all you want to see for Kalen. Not expected to be an immediate starter in the league. So get to learn from Levante David, one of the best, and also had a really damn good season last year. So I think that's going to be awesome to watch, get some mentorship there in that Buccaneers locker room. We're going to go back over to the West Coast, gentlemen. I'm going to say defensively, Akeem Dent is headed over there with the Los Angeles Chargers, and he's going to be joining DB NFLU over there. I'm just going to start calling it because he's going to be joining Derwin James, one of the top safeties in the league, former FSU star, and also Asante Samuel Jr. Gentlemen, he's. Did y'all expect for Akeem to get drafted first off?
No, he got hurt more than anyone by the college football playoff decision because he was playing pretty well there in the season. We talked about this last week, but he could have really used 1 or 2 more games, shined on the brightest stage, and could have worked his way into getting drafted, but wasn't surprised that he ended up not getting drafted.
Yeah, I was along the same lines of thinking there as Austin. Had a really strong finish to his senior season, but I mean, you think about throughout the entirety of his career, pretty inconsistent at times, dealt with some injury issues. So, I mean, it made sense that he wasn't selected, but he definitely put himself on that radar with that showing that he had at Florida State's Pro Day. And, you think if Florida State maybe did have that opportunity to play in the college football playoff and he had continued that upward momentum, maybe that would have helped him out a little bit. So,
yeah, I know. I was hoping that he would have played in that, but I understand, the situation and understanding that, and he can go prove himself here over there with the Chargers. But I'm going to be following along there. I'm not too entirely sure what that safety room looks like outside there with Derwin James. I know you're probably going to look it up, VZ. But as I move on real quick, though, Fabian Lovett is getting an opportunity over there, and he joins Derek Nottie, another Nole who was held down, who also just signed a contract extension with the defending Super Bowl champions over there with Andy Reid and Kansas City. But he's going to be going to join Nottie and the trenches there, which is super dope to kind of think of here. You're Akeem Dent, you go to Tatum Bethune, Derwin James with Akeem Dent, and then also too for Fabo going here with Derek Nottie, Chris Jones too, one of the best defensive tackles in all of football. Some great rooms these guys are headed in. But shout out to Fabo also to hear the Spirit alum, baby.
Yeah, if you're looking to get a ring on your finger early in your career, there's probably not a very better landing spot to go to than Kansas City. I mean, Derek Nottie has already got 3 since he got into the NFL just a couple of seasons ago. So, I mean, he's racking it up. And, I think this is another one where I feel like it's a pretty good fit overall. Kansas City, with the way that salary cap is, and they've got money spread around to everyone, if they can get a cheap defensive piece to kind of help them out for the coming years, someone like Fabian Lovett, I think that's kind of what they're looking for at this point. But I was honestly, this is probably the one, well, maybe Kalen, I mentioned Kalen too, but I was also pretty surprised that Fabo didn't get drafted. He was someone that I thought we kind of had in that 5th to 6th range as well. And, the Denver Broncos were a team that showed a lot of interest in him, and they actually had a pick there within those last couple of picks in the 7th round. And I was eyeing it. I'm like, is Fabo going to go off the board here? Ultimately, he didn't. You got to think some of those injuries, those lower body injuries throughout his last couple of years at Florida State probably hurt him there in the end. But I mean, I feel like he's a steal now getting to go to a place like Kansas City.
Yeah, there were some people that had him in the mid to late hundreds of their big boards. So to see him fall out of the draft entirely was a little surprising, but lands in a perfect spot. Kansas City loves their Florida State run-stopping defensive tackles, and they needed some defensive line help, especially some younger defensive line help. So great fit overall. I think it's probably one of my more favorite fits of the guys that went to NFL teams this week. Going real quick back to Akeem Dent, he's gonna have a real good shot to make that roster. They don't really have a deep safety unit. It's Derwin James and a whole bunch of nothing. 6th round pick, couple undrafted guys. He's gonna have a chance to make that roster right away. So excited for both of those guys to get an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, just now that we're so involved with the Buccaneers, and this will be going into my 3rd training camp here. I love training camp, and definitely it's more of these guys. We know he's solidified starters. You got your Mike Evans, you got your Rashad White, RB1 stuff, but it's these guys that definitely for Noles who are undrafted or some late round picks, seeing how they can get up on that depth chart is going to be super fun to cover. And make sure you guys are staying tuned to NoleGameday.com, and too, we'll be giving you updates here on Hear the Spear as well. But that's going to wrap up there the NFL draft for us. Had some crazy stuff going on. I wasn't able to be there with you guys for the Atlanta Falcons, but just know, sitting in the media room for the Buccaneers, absolute laughter and WTF going around there, just wondering what the Atlanta Falcons are doing. But the Falcons going to Falcon. That was wild.
There's definitely a couple on this end.
And that I thought the NFL draft delivered, man. There was a great storylines that got answered, and there was a lot of just WTFs like that right there. And I liked how my Steelers did. How do you think you feel good about the Vikings over there? VZ, a lot of trading up and stuff.
I didn't want JJ McCarthy, and I still don't feel any better about it a week later. I wanted Penix over McCarthy, but to see Atlanta go Penix, I was like, okay, so we're going to get JJ. Great.
Mm-hmm.
The trade up for Dallas Turner cost a lot, but he's a very good player. I mean, he was a lot of people's first defensive player off the board. I want to say on the consensus big board, he was the #1 defender. So glad we got him. I think he's going to be a very good player. That edge rotation of him, Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, and then they signed Gabriel Murphy as an undrafted free agent who was like the 110th player on the consensus big board. It's going to be a fun edge group. Then we didn't pick again until the 3rd day, which at that point, who really cares? And now we have 3 picks for next year, a 1st and 2 5ths. So it's going to be a little interesting to see how this all shakes out.
Yeah, we'll see. You had to replace Hunter at the edge position, so needed that with Turner coming in. But yeah, felt good. Bucks had a good draft as well. Got graded by a lot of the national outlets in that A range. So,
but how much content did we lose with the Bucks using their 1st round pick on an offensive
alignment? Yeah, I've had some rough go rounds. The first draft we were involved, didn't traded out of the 1st round. So my first fear always is just please stay in it and draft them this year. They definitely had to, but it was starting to get close there with Jared Verse becoming available, and Florida State or the Buccaneers would have 100% gone after him, but they did need some O-line help. And I would have liked to see, that time will come, but this year go around, we just could not have a star playmaker, kind of wide receivers, running backs, they weren't going to go quarterback, but those guys get more clicks. So I wish it would have been, but got to protect Baker, got to protect the cook.
I did not have a very good reaction on this podcast when that happened.
He did not. He had almost a worse reaction than I did when the Vikings drafted JJ.
I was so upset.
No, yeah, that's something that the Bucks just make. Here's the deal: we're heading the right direction with Kalen getting picked up here. Let's let Kalen get a 53-man roster, and then everything will be settled. We can kind of work an agreement there, D-Lou, with the Bucks. So, and Jason Light.
And then next year they draft Jeremiah Byers 1st round.
Oh boy.
Well, I mean, it's an O-lineman, but it's an FSU football player. So I mean, we'll take that as long as it's a Nole. We can definitely work with that. We can work with that for sure. Let's go through some quick hitters here. And we'll go some basketball to round up the evening. Quick hitters, real quick. Vondravius Jacobs, redshirt freshman wide receiver, is headed over to South Carolina. He's headed over to the SEC, along with another former Nole is heading to the SEC with Steven Dix Jr., former linebacker. Spent the year over there at Marshall and now entered the transfer portal. He's got a new home over there in Arkansas. And then Malik McLean, former Florida State wide receiver, was with Penn State last year. He just most recently entered the NCAA transfer portal there. So there's some quick hitter updates on that end of things, everybody.
Real
there's a question
quick,
here.
I did some research for a couple hours before this podcast, and I'll make this an article tomorrow. But if you had to guess the percentage of players that have transferred out from Florida State in the last 3 seasons and are already on a new school, what would you guess?
3 seasons in the new school.
Last 3 seasons.
So 22, 23, and 24.
This is where Dustin loves this kind of stuff.
He
start
does.
speculating.
They're like they committed to a new school, or they're still at one right now.
No, so like they're either like they went to a new school and have either already entered the portal again or onto a new school already.
Ooh, I'd say 40%.
It's not that high. it's 25%, which is still pretty high. I did the math. It was 25% already on a new school. About 18% have graduated or moved on. Like in the case of Keyshawn Helton, I couldn't find if he was medically retired or just graduated. 2 players went to the NFL, if you count Amari Gaynor signing his undrafted free agency contract today. And about 50,
Derek
54. Did he get signed?
Yeah, he signed with the Panthers.
Oh, I missed that. So that's 3. And then about 54% are still at their same school. I just thought it was interesting.
There's also former Nole that's signed
I've
as
also got
running back.
Yeah, I've got LaDamian Webb with the Dolphins. Anthony
He transferred
Grant,
out in 21 though, and Anthony Grant was
Grant.
longer than that, I think.
Okay, with the Buccaneers, and Jarvis Brownlee with the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, I had Brownlee listed. I didn't know McClendon signed. I missed that one.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't see his Instagram story? He popped the bottle of champagne in the parking lot?
I don't follow him.
Oh, maybe I should unfollow him.
Yeah, how about Deion Sanders and the craziest stuff happening there on social media? Shador Sanders. Shador Sanders talking about a former teammate and saying that he wasn't good. I must have forgot about him. And then Deion Sanders, for some reason, getting involved there as well. You're the Spear alum, I must say. Deion is in our intro as well, so I got to throw that in there for the clout. But no, yeah, man, that stuff is unbelievable. Imagine if Deion Sanders came to Florida State. There was a lot of people on social media that were making tweets. They wanted that and everything. I think it's, get the, reflect and be like, nah, that would have been a pretty bad idea. But yeah, Deion Sanders was going after, just talking trash about one of his former players practically. And so was Shador Sanders, QB1 there at Colorado.
Yeah, we saw Spencer Rattler drop to the 5th or 6th round because of a Netflix show from high school. I don't think Shador Sanders going on Twitter and bashing former teammates is going to help his cause any.
Yeah, and Deion's, sitting there touting him, saying he's going to be a top 5 pick. And
at this point, I don't know if he's a top 5 round pick.
I definitely don't think top 5 pick. I mean, he's a very talented player, obviously, and they don't really have a ton of pieces around him at Colorado. There were times last year where the talent disparity and the lack of depth was just obvious. And I mean, that was a big reason why he got beat up. That offensive line is a joke. I mean, frankly, I don't know how much better it's going to be in 2024. I don't pay much attention to Colorado, but I mean, the whole thing with him spouting off at a former teammate and then Deion getting involved with it, it's just not a good look, especially with how everything went there last year. And it wouldn't surprise me if a year from now, we're talking about 2 people that are no longer at Colorado.
Marlon Cooper, too, former Nole, just hit the portal as well from Colorado. So
yeah, well, Tomcat just asked how many are still with Colorado from Florida State. By my count, only 2. It's Travis J and Brendan Gant, from what I could tell.
Mm-hmm. Bishop Thomas just got in the portal a day or 2 ago.
Amari Cooper just hit the portal a couple days ago, and then McClendon, as you just talked about, just ran out of eligibility, is signed with the Panthers. So I believe that was everyone.
He had one more year of eligibility, but he chose to declare for the NFL.
Okay. Either way, he's not there anymore. So only 2 there longer.
Yeah. Wild. It's wild. I mean, I don't know, the Colorado thing, Deion Sanders, I mean, it's going to bring a lot of viewership again, like it did last year. It's probably going to diminish and slow down a little bit than how it was last year, just because they were just seeing if this was just an experiment that was being ran and everybody wanted to tune in. But now, Deion says he's going to be there for a long time, but yeah, they're relying on a lot of transfers, 1-year transfers to come in, and not a lot of programs have found success in that model, except for, just a few. And, Florida State's done a really good job of that. They have a great track record at that too, but it's all about meshing in that locker room, building that chemistry first. And when your QB1 is out there just talking trash about some former players and such, it's not a great look. And best of luck there in the transfer portal and anything moving forward as well. Travis Hunter, unbelievable athlete, freak athlete, and I think for him, he's going to be a first rounder next year. But for him, I would just steer away from all the drama there that the Sanders are bringing all around him. Just steer away from it. Your talent should be a top 15 pick max. You're either someone's CB1 or someone's wide receiver 1 somewhere, but just stay away from it if you can, because that's just not good stuff to be like tagged in and with everything. It's just bad.
He seems to be doing a good job so far of just kind of staying out of the way of this hoopla, which good decision. Smart decision, young man. I know that name's cursed on here, but he's making the right decision.
Yeah. I think everyone knows how big of a social media presence that Travis Hunter has. He's always on Twitter, Instagram, or streaming or something, and he's done a very smart job not to get involved with any of these antics. Just keep your head down and keep grinding.
Yeah, 100%. Beezy, lead us into some basketball to finish off the show, as it's been another pretty busy week as well for you on that end of things.
Yeah, so we'll start with today's news with Jameer Watkins being in the transfer portal. He declared last week. We talked about it last week on the podcast. Now he's in the portal with a do not contact tag. Most of the times that means they already have a destination in mind. In this scenario, I'm almost wondering if he's thinking, I'll go through the NBA process first. Then if that doesn't work out, I'll come back and weigh my options in the portal. Don't really know on how that's going to work out yet. I still think he's more likely to go pro. I think that skill set and that athleticism, that size, I think a lot of teams are going to fall in love with that, whether that's late first round, early second round. I think he has a pretty solid chance to get drafted. I really don't want to see Florida State have to play him next year, whether he goes to UNC or something. Hopefully I didn't just speak that into existence, but I don't want Florida State to play him. He's so talented. So hopefully he stays in the draft, gets drafted. Please don't come back to school and haunt us. Outside of that, they got 2 pretty random commitments literally out of nowhere on Wednesday. It's Boston Holt out of South Dakota and Justin Thomas out of UTSA. Holt is the more likely of the 2 to see minutes, in my opinion. But even then, if he's anything more than a guy that's playing 10, 12 minutes per game, I'd be kind of surprised. Started at JUCO, went to Utah, didn't really play at Utah, had an okay season at South Dakota last year, 12 points per game. Solid 3-point shooter. I want to say he was 39%, but only about 1.5 attempts per game. So it doesn't shoot a lot, but does make him when he shoots them. Justin Thomas, I'll be honest, I have no idea. Didn't play at all last year for UTSA. Started his career at Queen's University, which is here in Charlotte. Then went to JUCO. Then went to Milwaukee for a year where he averaged 7 points per game, shot 43% from 3. Then transferred to UTSA where he didn't play. So 4 schools in 4 years, and he's only played at one of them, essentially. If he's getting major minutes next year, it's not a good thing, just from what we've seen on tape so far this year. Maybe he made a ton of progress while sitting out at UTSA last year. We literally do not know right now. But definitely 2 surprising takes. They, as far as I can tell, they weren't even really mentioned with Florida State to begin with. And I remember sending a list of some of the schools that Justin Thomas was talking to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the other schools that he had heard from when he entered the portal, and this was announced a week ago: Florida State, Milwaukee, his old school, Louisiana Lafayette, Nicholls State, Seton Hall, Little Rock, and Houston Christian. Seton Hall's a solid program. The rest of those, I'm sure a couple people just went, who?
So you're saying like Leonard Hamilton, the staff is just like Jason Light and the Buccaneers. They're finding a gym. That's all they're doing. That's all it is. You got to believe in the process here, VZ. They're finding a gym that nobody else would think of.
I certainly hope so.
Before.
Yeah, I certainly hope he's an undrafted, or I certainly hope he's an unfound gem, because it was one of those when the John Rothstein notification showed up on my phone. I'm like, who is that? Because they're let's just be real here. There's no one that's more obsessed with this kind of stuff than I am. I literally have a list of all the contacts Florida State makes. throughout the transfer portal cycle. I didn't have either of these two names on my list. We'll have to see how they turn out. I do like the visitor they had on campus this week, Amari Marshall out of Albany.
Yeah.
16 points per game, high level scorer from everywhere, from the rim, from three, good defender, averages close to 2 steals per game. If they can secure that commitment, that would be a huge one. But even that being said, he was the second best player on a really bad Albany team. What can you expect for him to be at Florida State? And that's kind of the players we're looking at right now. Only 2 players you have returning are Taylor Bowen and Chandler Jackson. God forbid that one of them submit their paperwork yesterday and we won't find out till tomorrow. Again, hopefully I didn't just jinx that. But it's really all you have returning. And there's a lot of unknowns, a lot of questionable pieces that you can tell that the NIL is not there for them to get these bigger players. It's bleak. My optimism is gone. And I'll just leave it at that.
Will FSU have more scholarship players or wins next season?
Oh,
Jeez.
That's a good question.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I got to see how they finish out this roster, because the way I see it is, if you get Amari Marshall, you still got to get one more guy that can play the 2 or the 3. Got to get a guy that can play the 3 or the 4, and you got to get one more center. And ideally, all 3 of those guys are rotation level players at worst or quality starters at best. Because right now you're looking at a starting lineup of Chandler Jackson, who I like. I just don't know if he's a starting player in the ACC yet. Slot in Amari Marshall at the 2, that's fine. Your 3 right now would be Boston Holt, which, no, I'm good on that for now. Taylor Bowen at the 4, Malik Ewan at the 5, which I don't know how he'd be at the ACC level. Hopefully I'm totally wrong and all of these pieces could somehow work out, but it's tough to see it on paper right now.
Doesn't look intriguing to me right now, ladies and gentlemen.
Trust me, it was one of those when I was just listing out the depth chart yesterday on my phone. I'm like, oh.
Nobody knows, amigo. Not great. Well, hopefully maybe the next time we get an update here on the basketball side, it's a little bit more of a more optimistic update. But yeah, I mean, there it goes. Hopefully the last season of Coach Ham is not as I don't know what to really say. Not awful. Let's just keep it basic. Not awful for him in his last season. That's all I'm hoping for, because he deserves to go out in a solid way, but things just don't seem to be heading in that direction this offseason so far. I think that's going to wrap it up for this evening, gentlemen, unless there's anything more on your end. I don't think we have anything else here on the docket. As always, you can listen to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. If you're on YouTube right now, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. We got content coming to you no matter what, all throughout the next couple of months in this offseason as we prepare for the 2024 FSU football season. Just some updates on the site itself. I know you guys do a lot of reading on our websites. We've been going through a whole migration, going into a new, not network, but under a new parent company that owns Sports Illustrated. And so that also affects us under the Fan Nation Network. But just to let everybody know, we re-signed in a long-term partnership deal with Minute Media and Sports Illustrated. So that means we're not going anywhere. The future is looking very bright, but that's why some of our sites, some of the articles have kind of been iffy the last couple of months almost, but definitely this month in general, it has been all over the place. But starting next week, we should see a better reload on the sites, a lot more better optimization. You'll see sections, categories, all updated. The homepage will be updated and everything. So we're getting kind of back to some normalcy on that end. But shout out to all of our staff across the FSU site here with NoleGameday, but all of our other sites as well for just hanging on with us, doing a lot of things on the back end that they don't necessarily should be doing or having to do, but they're doing some work and killing it for us and staying, foot forward on everything. So just want to shout out all of our Game Day media staff and everything that they've been doing these last couple of weeks while dealing with big events like the NFL draft and, spring camp going on for FSU and some other things that we're looking forward to sharing here soon as well, as we do have some new game days on the horizon. So appreciate everybody hanging out with us. Y'all are awesome. Appreciate it. Y'all have a great rest of y'all's week and going into the weekend. And as of right now, Dustin, we're aiming for Wednesday.
We're aiming for Wednesday as of right now.
Aiming for Wednesday at 7 p.m. and looking forward to hanging out with you guys. And, we'll see if we can grab a guest too as well You have a great rest of y'all's weekend. Peace.